Right, there we go. Looks like we've started. Hello, and welcome to our Mind the Gap webinar. My name is Zoe. I'm the Programme Design Manager here at the CIPD Trust. And sharing the expertise of people that work in HR is a key part of what we do in the CIPD Trust. And in these webinars, we like to give you a bit of a look behind the scenes of the recruitment process and what that means for you as someone who might be looking for work or might be thinking about returning to work in a little while. So to tell you a bit more about who we are, the CIPD Trust was set up to work with HR professionals to tackle barriers to work. We run programs where HR people can volunteer their skills and experience to help people who are looking for work. And that could be working one-to-one with someone on their specific challenges, or it could be something like these webinars where people can share general tips and advice. And we also provide guidance for people working in human resources to make changes in their workplaces that will remove some of the barriers to work for specific groups like refugees or other groups that we work with. And we're very pleased today to be running this webinar in collaboration with our wonderful partners, Breaking Barriers. And I've got Bex here to talk a little bit about who they are and a little bit about our partnership. So Bex, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Zoe. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to say a very warm welcome. So as most of you will be with Breaking Barriers, we're supporting people to return to work commensurate with our skills and experience. And one of our key partnerships is with the CIPD Trust, who are providing employability skills. So that can be in the form of mentoring, so looking at CVs, applications, and interview techniques. And then we're also working with them to create webinars like today. So just wanted to say a huge thank you to CIPD Trust for creating this webinar for us today and for the kind of continued partnership. If anyone after this webinar would like more information on CIPD and the partnership, please do drop me an email. I'd be happy to answer that. And thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So pleased to have you here, Bex, and everyone that has joined today as well. It's really great to see so many people joining this session. So I've got a couple of housekeeping things to begin with. We're recording this session, but cameras and microphones have been disabled, so no one will be able to see you or hear you. Please use the chat to ask any questions and make comments. My lovely colleague Ali is in the chat, so please do talk to her, keep her busy. Ask her questions, and just be aware that we might read out some comments from the chat on the recording. So I'm going to have a conversation with our fabulous panel here, and then we will take some questions from the chat. So please do put any questions in that you have. We'd really love to be able to answer any specific questions on the session today. So please do put that in. So today we're going to be talking about career gaps and how to talk about them. When you've been out of work for a while, that gap on your CV can feel like a huge looming obstacle, particularly if you've had to move country and start your whole life again. So today we're going to talk about some of the realities of job searching with a gap on your CV and some of the ways that you can keep positive and make a successful return to work. We've got a great panel here today to share their thoughts and ideas about how to make a success of it. And I think we'll hear from them now. So Yanis, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about this matter. My name is Yanis, let's ask who I am, and I work as a senior staffing officer at the Department of Civil, Environmental and Geomatic Engineering at University College of London here in Bloomsbury. My personal journey, I could connect with this element of having a gap on the CV, of course, not for some serious reasons, as most of the participants will have faced today. However, having moved in the UK, having to adjust to a new society, new systems, new processes, new ways of finding work, like, really resonates with me, and it is, I think it is a valid concern for most of you, and I think for many people that they move and they have to relocate, especially when it comes under such harsh circumstances as well. So yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope that I can provide some valuable things today for you to continue your journey.
Great, thank you. And now let's hear from B, our other panelist.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. I need to apologize. I do have a cold, so if at any point my voice goes, I'm really sorry, or you hear me sneezing or things like that. So I am originally Spanish, and same thing as Janice. I moved to the UK 15 years ago. I used to work in HR in Spain, and then when we arrived 15 years ago in the UK, we thought it was it was going to be very easy because we thought that we could speak English. And then we arrived to Leeds and realized that we couldn't really speak English. So my first years, as probably with a lot of you, I had to go back and work in restaurants and warehouse and factories until I improved my English, and I was able to start to go back into my HR career. It's the same as Janissa identified, a lot with what you guys are going through. I mean, that those early years were very tough, and for everyone, that's gone through that situation, it will be. And eventually, when I managed to get back into HR, which at some points it felt impossible that it will happen, it opened the door, to a lot of new things that came afterwards. And because of that, I understand what it feels to be and to start over and to have your life in the trunk of your car, which is what we did, literally, and with no place to stay. So that's why I joined the CIPD Trust, and I care so deeply to support him with these webinars now, hearing, from other people and sharing my experience to hopefully help people and make you understand that there's light at the end of the tunnel and it can happen. Makes sense.
Brilliant. Great, thank you. And yes, we will make allowances for you. Your voice may be going a bit B. Hopefully you'll make it all the way through to the end. So the first thing we wanted to do was see if we could get a bit of conversation going in the chat. So we have a question for all of you watching. If you could put in the chat, what do you find the most challenging about job searching? We know there's probably lots of things. For you guys moving to the UK, I can imagine there's all sorts of things that you're kind of finding difficult. So do let us know in the chat what is it that you're finding difficult at the moment. We'd love to hear about that. And I guess while we're waiting to see if anyone is going to pop anything in the chat for us, I'll go to you two, Yanis and B. Yanis, let's start with you. What do you find most challenging about looking for work?
If I go and reflect back on my early years in the UK, which is not even that far along, I've been in the UK like 8-9 years. Basically, after Brexit was voted, so around 2017. And I felt that the most difficult bit was I was already qualified basically as B. I had a different career back in Greece. Maybe I was overqualified for some positions. And it was very difficult to understand what strategy I should have to get to where I wanted to be, considering especially that I had to go again through the requalification in the UK because I used to be a music teacher back then. So let's forget the HR bit. Now I did also a career change in the UK, but we had to go through the requalification, understand the system and all of that. It was very stressful to understand basically the structure and my future workplace environment, how to get there.
Right.
What to do to get there. That's what about
what about now, Yanis? If you were looking for work now, like you've got a different career, you're kind of going, what would be the thing that you'd be like, oh, I really don't want to do that bit of it?
I think the amount of time you need to spend on an application, to be honest with you. It is a lengthy process. Many companies might use AI tools to do shortlisting and all of that. So thinking about it, that you have to make one application and trying it to go through the different stages of recruitment, it is a difficult one. It's not an easy task to do.
Yeah. And what about you, B? What do you kind of find the most challenging about job searching?
I think, it depends on the roles. I can see now in the chat that there's a lot of people from healthcare, which is what I've been working on the past 5 years. So I can identify a lot, what people are saying in there. I think the more challenging thing, is finding out what to say and what not to say. Does that make sense? I had a conversation with my mentees yesterday, and she was asking me, do I lie on my CV? And I put that I was actually doing some consulting on that period, to cover up and things like that. And the reality is that I think people understand that life happens. Does that make sense? And you are able, to put forward what have you learned and what can you do, and what have you done with that time that you had that career break, between when you've been coming into the country. It's all about making it an opportunity rather than a challenge. Does that make sense? It's twisting that challenge into an opportunity. But I agree with Janice. I think one of the biggest challenges right now is and the bots that are filtering everything, and the application forms that are expecting you to put date to date and the detail on it when you don't have it. So that's probably the biggest challenge right now, fighting the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And just having a look at what people have put in the chat, I can see not having UK experience is a really common one. Experience in the NHS. Can also see some people saying what I would say is my top one, which is not getting feedback on job applications. I think that can be really difficult. Hopefully we'll get a little chance towards the end to talk about some ways to deal with that. Because I know that's really demoralizing. You just don't get any answers. You don't know what's going on. So I can see so many of these coming through. Great. So hopefully today we'll overcome some of those challenges. We obviously can't fix the whole system, but hopefully we'll give you some ideas and things to think about to make a kind of positive next step. So let's go on to our first question. So I'm going to ask you, Yanis, this one. How are career gaps typically perceived by employers? So how do employers look at a career gap on your CV? What do they think when they see that?
So I would like to think that nowadays more and more employers become more understanding and more progressive when it comes to career gaps. So we need also to have as in mind that apart from employers is directly the line managers, and that they might review some CVs. So ideally, we want to see that the skills and the potential is there. However, of course, you might end up being reviewed, your application might be reviewed for someone less progressive, that they would be looking for a linear career. However, most employers will now look at what you have achieved, what skills you can transfer in the new role. It is a tough labor market, so that gives people an advantage to showcase themselves for skills and experience that they can transfer into a new role and maybe into even a new industry. So I want to hope that more employers will review things like that, and they understand that a career gap, it's not a sign of not being motivated for work or anything like that. And it is also important, which I think we'll touch upon later as well, is how the career gap is mentioned on the CV. So it is very important to be specific there, be honest, be brief, and all of that. But I think we will touch on that later.
Did you have anything to add about kind of how employers see career gaps? I know you've done some kind of quite interesting different kinds of recruitment where you've kind of had to think about that. What's kind of your perspective on how people perceive a career gap?
I think, as we said, like people understand that life happens, and from my point of view, when I'm looking at a CV and I'm looking at a career gap, and I'm wondering, what's happening there, it's all about how the people is showcasing, as I was saying before, what have they done on that gap. So if you just mention that you just arrive and that's it, and you're leaving it open, for interpretation of the person, so then you have to deal with the bias of the person that's in the CV, their personal circumstances of how much exposure they had to, to that kind of CVs. But to me, what is important is what I'm looking for in there is why did that happen and what have you done with it? and what are you doing while you're waiting, if that makes sense. So if you make it that opportunity and you make it, that you have been doing training, that you have been doing upskilling, that you have been learning the language and things like that, it makes you, it's so that you have that clarity and confidence and that you are ready to work. That gaps becomes just one part of your story, not a barrier, if that makes sense. So when I'm looking at the CVs and I see something like that, it's about that, is how to explain the gap and the strengths that you bring today. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that quite naturally comes on to our next question, which is, what is a good way for someone to describe that gap on their CV? B, do you want to just carry on and tell us like some wording? What could people write?
Yeah, so Jenny said, I probably would say keep it simple. You will have to go through AI, ATSs, and recruiters that are looking at 200 CVs, especially, looking at, the background of other people on the chat, from a healthcare point of view. When we put, for example, an advert for a healthcare assistant, sometimes we get 300, 400, 500 CV applications, so technically a recruiter has about 10 seconds per CV. So, writing War and Peace of why you arrive and all that kind of stuff is not going to help, because the recruiter does not have time to deal with it. So keeping it simple, short line, something like a career break due to relocation, or things like that, it will help. But as I said, with a small brief of what have you been doing in the meantime as well, so it's not just simply I've not been working. It's also what you've been doing in the meantime. So I think from our point of view, what matters is that it is honest. Do not lie. That's a reality. It will be caught at some point in the process. If someone lies, be clear and just allow us to actually have a look at what skills and experience you have, regardless of what you were doing on that time. That makes sense?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I like the keep it very brief. That sounds really good. Yanis, do you have anything extra to add on top of that?
I think it's basically what we said. Maybe just focus on including and framing it of what you got even during the relocation time, because many people might be learning a language, doing any volunteering or in community engagement. Put it there, but as we said, keep it honest, keep it positive, and keep it brief, because ATS systems and managers do not have time to read a full paragraph about why the relocation happened. I think the global events, the recent ones, have showed us that people even closer to your move or are forced to move, so they can understand the reasons why. But focus on your skills, focus on your previous careers as well. Try to make relevant the rest of your career to the job that you're applying for. Your strengths are there, and your relocation can focus on what you did throughout this recent period of your life, but it's not the entire career there.
Yeah, great. And am I right in thinking that a lot of ATSs, like they'll be looking for dates and things, won't they? So you might sort of want to structure it so that you've got the kind of relevant dates of when you weren't working to explain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you will need to, a lot of them, especially you're applying through NHS jobs and things like that. NHS jobs is the worst job applicant system, job portal, is this, like 30 years old and they haven't evolved it since. So just make sure that you have that date for when you arrive, and just put it to current or whatever, so a lot of ATSs will have in the back AI checking, and if there's a gap that is not documented somehow, even if it says career break or relocation, it might reject the CV automatically. So yes, I will just say make sure it's all documented.
Right, yeah, so you've got all the dates covered, yeah.
And it goes back to your point, B, that don't leave room for assumptions. Don't leave room for others to assume what you were doing or you were not doing. Be explicit there.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you. That's really helpful, I think, for just that, getting your CV together. And so our next question is about the kind of next bit, which is like the cover letter, or I think in NHS applications, it's like your application statement. How much detail should you put in there about about your relocation, about what's happened to you. Yanis, do you want to just take that to start off with?
I think it's related, same to the CV really. You can mention it if it's a significant amount of time that you have in the career as a career gap. Mention it. Don't hide behind. Don't lie or don't hide behind it. Do a high-level explanation. You don't need to go into every single detail of what you went through. Although it must have been very difficult, the employers, what they want to see on the cover letter is how you can bring your skills to the job. So connect them there. So if you when you include on the cover letter, just connect the skills that you have got during the career gap and your previous career. The previous career is the most important one, and how you can bring all of that to the job that you're applying. And channel it there. Don't expand a lot. I think you still want to show that you are a professional. So the cover letters usually also have character limits, they have word limits. So you want this document to work as a first step to get you an interview. So you will put your bet on your skills and your previous career, not on the career gap.
Yeah, that's great. B, do you have anything extra?
Yeah, it's just that. It's just, as we said, acknowledge it, in your cover letter, but one of the things that I found more helpful, when I was getting CVs or cover letters or application forms, is about highlighting, why did you do it and what have you done with it now? And as Janet said, it's your chance to highlight your professional skills and your motivations. So make sure that in there is when you're highlighting, this is why I'm here, this is what I'm looking for now, and this is how I related to the skills I had in the past, So I know that a lot of people is asking questions about why, when you ask for UK experience, how do you handle that? Even if you don't have it, just look at the skills that are as a request on the job application, on the job description or on the job advert, and make sure that you link that with the skills that you had in the past, on your cover letter, and you highlight it. So I think don't hide, as we said. We keep saying that. Be upfront about it, but just make sure that you use all of that, as an opportunity to highlight your strengths. At the end of the day, when someone is looking to relocate, lifting your whole life and going to a different country requires a set of skills that not a lot of people has. Some employers will actually value that skills as well. So don't hide about it, and just spin it in a way where you're actually highlighting how your skills from the past and from the now connect with what the employer is asking for.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to ask about how can people answer that UK work experience question. So I think you've kind of moved us on to that quite nicely about really you have to work a little bit harder maybe to link to what's in the person specification, job description, but it's just making sure that that's really clear, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the reality, because even that there is a lot that will have as a requirement, and there is things that you're not going to be able to beat. One is an AI bot. If it's got a requirement, of UK experience that you don't have it, it's going to reject you. But there will be a lot of other roles, where you will be able to beat that, by doing that on the cover letter. And it's the same as when you're applying for a different sector that you has never worked before. These are the skills that I'm bringing from my past that I can apply to this new sector. So this is exactly the same. Just bring that skills from the past into that new role.
Yeah, great. Thank you. It's really helpful. And I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I guess how can people describe their relocation in a positive way? How can people, what's some language they can use? I mean, B, you talked a bit about resilience. Do you want to just kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, the reality is that it requires a lot of skills, as I was saying before. You have to, it shows that you have courage, that, that you just don't just sit down and, that you go and look for that change and to improve your life for whatever reason behind it. Sometimes you're forced, sometimes, it's by choice. It shows that you can adapt. It shows that you're good for change. And also, is this about highlighting and navigating change in a positive way? So it's about highlighting that on your cover letters and on your applications and on your interviews when you get to that, about this is why I wanted, I couldn't do it, this is why I came here, and this is why I'm doing to achieve it. And it's just highlighting the journey, moving it from a personal experience to a professional environment, so this is the skills that I actually had to use, to adapt into the new country. This is what I had to do. I had to research what suppliers like Breaking Barriers is, to support with my journey. I had to look for what support DWP, so it's about using all that skills that you had to use, when you are adapting, coming into a new country and bringing it into the professional environment. And I think that will really help to make that journey, highlight in a positive way.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yanis, did you have anything else to add on to that?
Not much really. I think we just to note that forced relocation, apart from a very big disruption, a life-changing event for the individual, it's also a proof that you can be adaptable, that you can, as B said, navigate change, major change, not just a small change, and that you can manage logistics of moving to a new country, resettling, learning, adjusting. There are so many skills that many jobs will need that. So connect all these skills that you got from that, identify the skills. Let's start with that. Identify the skills that you got during the relocations and connect them directly to the skills of the job that you're applying for. I think it's going to get you one step further, I believe.
Yeah, that's really great, and actually leads us on. So we've got another question for you guys in the audience for you to put in the chat. So our question is, what is something that you have gained from your career gap? So like Yanis said, what are those skills that you can identify from that kind of difficult time, and what is it that maybe you could pull out as a positive? So if you could just let us know in the chat, that would be great. I also wanted to say that we'd have seen some questions popping through, so we will come to those towards the end. But yeah, please do keep sharing them. That'd be really helpful. And then I guess we'll go on to our next question, which is about how do you talk about forced relocation at the interview stage? What can people say about that at the interview stage? How can they frame that? Yanis, do you want to take that off to start with?
I think it's similar to what we mentioned already about CVs and cover letters. You need to be prepared to be asked that question, I think. Employers, depending on how the manager is comfortable. I've seen managers being able to handle these sensitive conversations. Some other managers might not be so comfortable. But I think they will really value if you are comfortable talking about it and owning it. So be prepared to answer any questions about during your career gap and the relocation. You can use, although usually we typically use it for other skills. You can use a STAR technique, which is about situation, task, action, and what you did basically with that. So it's again connecting it to the skills that you got. So link it still, if you were asked about the gap, still link it with the job you're interviewing for, and connect it with your future. Don't let it hinder your future. What else can I say?
I think you've covered quite a lot of that. Yeah, I think the being prepared is probably the best thing, right? I think that's a really something that we see a lot in all sorts of situations, that sometimes you think, oh, I put it in the cover letter, it's on my CV, like they won't ask about that, it's clear. But I think be aware that employers will ask about it, and they might not always ask about it in the most sensitive way. So you practice an answer, and don't just practice, like think it through, like actually say it out loud, and make sure that you can do that in a way that doesn't throw you off. And B, did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think that what we need to remember is that on the other side, there is people that had completely different lives, so you will have people that has, gone and traveled the world. You'll have people that has never left their village. You'll have people that, are more aware and more familiar with what it is, to live your life and move. You have people that will not even conceive, how, the amount of challenges that you have, how how do you talk to Empower to set up your electricity when you can't even speak English, right? So I think it's about being realistic, and also your CV and cover letter, to your point, so could have gone through 5 different hands before it goes to the hiring manager, So the person that will be doing the interview might not have any knowledge at all. They might not even seen your CV yet. They might just have a summary from the pre-screening person, or things like that. There is a lot of processes internally that are happening lately, to actually remove bias and things like that, So don't assume that the person that is talking to you already have seen your 20 steps application form and CV and things like that, because it's not always the case. And they will come from different backgrounds. So the main thing is be realistic, on how your skills and experience fit in the roles that you're applying to. I think when I arrived, one of the bigger mistakes I made is I thought I could just walk into a HR job in the UK. Like I've been doing it for 10 years in Spain, I should just be able to walk in. And I didn't realize I needed a lot of qualifications, a lot of exposure, to re-qualify to be able to do it, and to go back into it. So be realistic about your skills and your experience and how they fit into the role that you're applying to. Focus on the skills that transfer to the role, even if it's not coming from the same role or the same country, the same sector. And use clear examples, be prepared to have clear examples of challenges that you handle well. And so that confidence that in what you bring, because, your journey has already proven your resilience, but it's about bringing that skills to the table, even if they are not from the same sector, from the same role, from the same country. But main thing for me is always be realistic, because and do a lot of research of how your experience compares with the market, because arriving to a new country, it's not always you can just walk into the job that you had on the on your path or on the past country.
Yeah, just to add on that, I think it's very useful as well to basically expand a bit on this last argument, is stay updated with what's going on in your sector in the UK. I think it's a very good opportunity to bring in a practical proof that you are up to date, you are ready to get into that role, because you stay updated, you didn't disconnect from the industry. So it will show a bit of higher level of readiness to work in a job.
Yeah, that's great. That's advice we give to people who have all different career gaps for all sorts of reasons. So I would definitely say that's an absolutely gold star thing. If you can say something recent that's going on, that always helps, that you can show that you kept up to date. We've had a few people come back with things that they've learned while they've not been working. So can see someone's talked about learning some new accounting software, which again is really great, the sort of keeping up to date kind of stuff. Improving language skills, volunteering, sitting exams. So yeah, like really good things. And these are really good things that I think employers, they want to hear. They want to hear you've been busy, you've kind of been doing things. I think it just helps to tell that story about what you've been doing without having to go into too much of the kind of personal detail about what's been going on. So yeah, really, really great. So we've got our next question, which is what can people do about an uneven work history that's been caused by having a career gap, having to relocate? How can people talk about that in a way that makes sense? Yanis, do you want to take that to start with?
I think it's similar, what we have mentioned before. It's again showing what you have achieved during these little breaks. Even if it's a small project or an online course, as we said, put it on there, mention what you've done, what you've gained from that. I think but also it's important to stress that you need to connect it with your current situation. So even if you had uneven career breaks before for various reasons, connect it to that you have now stability, and that you are ready to get into the world of work, and that you are focused, you are eager, you are ready to be there. So leave this thing in the past, connect it with your skills, and look into the future.
Yeah, Great. Yeah. And we've just had a question come through off the back of our question about what people had kind of been learning and things. And so the person who said they'd been learning about accounting software and so forth, they've asked, is that something they should put in their cover letter?
Definitely. Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. It's just, it's AI courses, is data, is Google Analytics, is anything, that can show, that you have been active and, as Janice said, ready to go back into the workplace, so it proves that point that you have not been just standing still waiting for things to happen, that you are up to date, and that just because you have not had that experience in the UK doesn't mean that you don't know what's going on, that you cannot do the job. So definitely.
Right. Yeah, thank you. So I think we're at the point where we can start taking questions from the chat. So let's see, I can just see this is right. The most recent one, so this is from Ahmed, and it says, I did work in 3 different sectors during my casual jobs. I developed adaptability, resilience, teamwork, and emotional intelligence, which are irrelevant to engineering, which I assume is the sector that they're looking for a job in. Should I put them on my CV? B, I can see you putting
It
a
is
face
relevant.
already.
It is relevant. That's the reality. It is relevant. I hire data scientists, engineers, all sorts. And all that skills to be relevant. Because it doesn't only prove what you can do at work. And even if you don't see a direct correlation with the role, it just proves what you've been doing up until now. So yeah, definitely. Yeah. And they are relevant, trust me. More and more.
Something we need to remember, I think, here is that employers don't hire just for skills of doing things. We hire the whole person. And the whole person is not about engineering skills, it's about all the skills that you mentioned, adaptability, emotional intelligence. Because many employers as well, we need to think that they might have training courses and they can develop and train you in what they want you specifically to do in the role. However, they cannot train you to be emotionally intelligent or be able to be resilient or be able to be adaptable. So these are very valuable skills. As we said, it's super valuable.
I think also to add, it doesn't matter what role you're used to do, from a healthcare assistant to an engineer, whatever. The world is changing at a speed that is crazy, and the world of work is changing at a speed that is crazy. Things that 2 years ago we were thinking, that's probably further down the line. Now they're just here, and the speed of change in the workplace is accelerating so much that there's not anymore a job where you'll just be expected to just be, stable and stale, for the next 5 years, because every single role from manufacturing to CEOs of big corporations will be expected to be able to change because the change is coming in so fast. So all these skills that we were talking about will be extremely relevant regardless of the sector and the role.
Right. Yeah. And I guess this is a similar kind of related question, which is, what if you've needed to take part-time roles that are not related to the job you want or have previous expertise in, i.e., you've got engineering experience and you want to, go back into engineering, but you've been working in retail and other roles. How can you put that on your CV in a way that your CV isn't all retail, but you can highlight your kind of relevant experience? How can you do that? Yanis, do you want to take that?
I would say, again, you need to mention it, because otherwise you will have a massive gap without any skills. Mention it, but focus it on what you're applying for. If you're doing retail and you have customer focus, I don't know, I'm not privy of what exactly the engineering job we are talking about, but if you are, for example, dealing with customers and you have all this background, see how it can be linked to this engineering role. It might not be in the hard skills, but might be on the soft skills. So see how this is linked. Don't just hide away and say, well, I have a gap for 5 years while you've been actively working. I think that's my advice, really. Just do that.
I was there because obviously when I arrived, I was doing all these manufacturing jobs and restaurants. I was a good waitress, but I was terrible in manufacturing. Okay, so I have realized that I can't work with my hands. I'm just terrible, which meant that every 3 months, I had to change jobs because I was so bad at it. Okay, so it was tough because obviously, you're seeing that, just like seeing a lot of short-term, part-time things like that roles on your CV on top of your career. The way I handled it was normally I will have the qualifications and all that at the end of a CV. But what I did was put all that qualifications and a summary of my skills related with HR at the beginning of the CV. So before people was getting into my work experience and seeing that I was a very bad manufacturing employee because I was really bad at the job, that I had the skills from the HR point of view, and that the courses that the CIPD courses I was doing and things like that, before. So already setting up the scene to say, this is who I am as a professional, as a profession, my professional career is in HR. I have to do this stint here, but then look at what I did before. If that makes sense, so that's how I position it, and that's how I managed to go back into the sector. But yeah, it's really tough. I totally understand because you want to be honest. You had to fill the dates, on the application forms and all that. So it's very difficult to come across, what you've done. But that's what I did. I basically shifted my CV forward and put, the qualifications and the skills and experience related with the career on the top, and the other stuff, following afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, like you said, you don't want to have that 5-year gap and like sort of have nothing when you've been working, because employers like to see that you've been working. But yeah, it's hard when that's not been relevant to what you want. But I think that's a great way around it, is really highlighting your kind of relevant experience. Yeah, great. So we've got another question from Beetle in the chat. And they say, do I have to write that I was still trying to improve my skills even when I was caring for my children? Or can I just mention that I had a gap to look after my children? Is that enough? Would employers expect to see more?
I think when the gaps are due to personal circumstances, like caring for for children or elderly family or partners or poorly or whatever, people is going to understand. So as long as you cover in there that it was for personal reasons and that's what you were covering, there's not going to be an expectation, to think that you were 12 hours a day in a hospital or in a, whatever, taking care of someone, and then on top of that, you're going to go and do a LinkedIn training course, so there's no expectation of that, and people understand that life happens. And that one is more positioning yourself of how do you prove that you are now ready to go back into work, and to the point that Janice was saying before, on that case, what I will do is now, this is what I'm doing, and I am up to date, and and I am back to be at work, but as you say, people is going to understand if it's for personal, if you've been busy with personal circumstances or illnesses or things like that. If that's the reason of the career gap, there's no need to fluff it up, if that makes sense, because people will understand.
Yeah, Janice, did you have anything to add? Looks like you're in full agreement. So.
No, what I've seen is I've seen basically one-liners, for example, I don't know, maternity leave or caring for parents, caring for children. So you don't need to go into full detail on there. If you did an online course, perfect, put it on the CV. Don't hide away from it either, as we said. Whatever you learn, whatever you do, and you bring skills in the job, don't hide away. But yeah, you don't need to worry about that. Usually it's a very standard thing to have career gaps for these things, for maternity, paternity, or any caring responsibilities.
Brilliant, great. And I can't see that we're getting many more questions in the chat. So if you do have any more questions, do put them in. Oh, here we go. Something has popped in as I was saying that. What do you suggest about adding to the cover letter or CV about a course or training session that is listed as essential on the job description, but I haven't done it yet, but I've booked it? Oh, this is a great question, because I think we get this a lot with people doing our qualifications at the CIPD. So if someone's booked onto a course and it's described as essential on the job description. Should they put that on their CV, or should they put that in the cover letter? Yanis, I can see you look like you've already got an answer.
Absolutely. It shows readiness. It shows that you have better chances to getting into an interview if they say that you are due to do it. Because it happens with a lot also with our HR jobs. Many jobs, they will say they want a CIPD or willingness to do that course. Yeah. So many employers, regardless if they say that they already want it on the essential criteria, for the right candidate, they will be willing to get this accommodated or even sponsor that sometimes. So absolutely put it on your CV, put it on your cover letter.
And also, if it doesn't land you the job at that point, it potentially can put you as a desirable on the talent pipeline. You know, a lot of the systems we might say someone is not ready now, but they will be in 2 years or in a year's time. You know, so you actually put them into your talent pipeline to contact in 6 months or in a year's time. So even if it doesn't get you the job now, on the background, you know, it will be able. You know, the recruiter will be thinking, okay, they don't have it yet. It takes 6 months to do the course. I'll put them to contact them in 6 months' time. So it opens the door to be contacted in the future.
Yeah, great. And just one thing we know from our qualifications is that sometimes it will get you through the systems. So if there's they might have an automated thing on saying, look for these letters, look for this course, whatever. So if you've booked onto it and that's definitely going ahead, I'd definitely put it. Be honest, don't say you've got a qualification you don't have, but definitely worth doing. We agree with both of you there. Great. So I guess one question that we haven't kind of talked about is wow, this is a good question, actually. Sorry, someone's just put this in the chat. So my question might be simple, but could you tell me, should a cover letter be a separate file, or would you have it in the same file as your CV?
Separate file, yeah.
Great. So 2 files, one with your cover letter and one with your CV. And I think if you're often you have to email things in, don't you? Like sometimes you'll have to email a cover letter and CV in. Should people be putting their full cover letter in that email, or is that just like a simple?
So it depends. So normally what I normally get, if you're asking for people to email you their CV and cover letter, again, 2 separate files. And then what I normally do is you have to bear in mind that with the market as tough as it is, recruiters will be getting hundreds of emails for every role, hundreds of applications to the system and things like that. So it's about standing out. So the easier that you make the life for the recruiter, the more chances you have of actually going through the system. So what I'll do is CV, cover letter, and then a summary highlighting the best points, you know, and immediately available, and I have experience, you know, of 10 years on these and things like that on the summary of the body. But on the point of separating, it's going to ask you in a lot of the portals, it's going to ask you for a separate file anyway. So the easier that you make life for a recruiter, the better. And sometimes they don't even ask for cover letters, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with me. Sometimes cover letters, even because we have a portal in our job, so some people might not upload anything. So don't mix them together. Keep them separate, straight, simple body. Sometimes they will not be reading even their simple body. So exactly because they might get 400 or 500 of applications for roles. So you don't need that. And always customize them. This is something else we always need to stress. Do not, what I've seen, and you see a beautiful CV and you say, that's a great candidate. Then you open the cover letter and this is a cover letter for a different company or for a different role, for a different job titles.
Yeah.
Customize them, check the criteria and match the criteria. It's a lot of work, especially when you want to submit a lot of applications. It is a lot of work, but you only need one chance. You only need one employer to say, oh, great, there we go.
That's really great. And that kind of brings us on to what is going to be my final question, which is, do the two of you have any practical tips for remaining positive and reframing rejection? I know that what you just said about you just need one employer to take one chance, I think that's a really good one. Yanis, do you have any more for us?
I think it's important because trust me, I got a lot of rejection as well. I think as peers, it is part of the process, we want it or not, but it's not a personal judgment. This is, I think it's a point that you can use. You can use it to your benefit. Ideally, yes, as we said, many companies might not give you feedback, but if you can get feedback of what you did well and what not, use that. Use that to get your future interviews even better. But you need to think that there is a lot on the background going on. So you might have an interview, you might reject it, but there is budget behind it, there are timelines. There might be other candidates with very niche skills that you are competing against, and that comes for all jobs across the board. Regardless if they have been relocated or not, we are talking about the general market here. I think to analyze it personally and manage it, because it has an emotion attached to it, this rejection, think about, was it a logistical? Did they go for an internal applicant? There, it's really out of your control. Is it something that you struggled with? Then see it as an opportunity to develop in your future interviews. You cannot manage the outcome of an interview. But you can manage the process, and everything that we'll be discussing, I think today, your documents, your narrative, your preparedness, your readiness, it's important to invest in those.
Yeah, great. B, do you have any advice for people on staying positive?
Yeah, I think, I totally can identify with this. When I first started, I was obsessed with Office Angels, the recruitment agency. And I used to send an updated version of my CV every 2 weeks. And I got a cease and desist email like, please stop emailing us your CV. We will let you know, when we have something. So I totally identify. But I think from my point of view, what I want to say is, and this is something, I think that we talked about it actually before. So there is I see a lot of time where people is taking rejections personally, and every rejection, every email that they get back, they feel that, it's a personal attack. It is good because that means that they care and that they're really interested in the job. However, as Janice was saying, with the current market and the way that AI has taken over recruitment and the volumes of applications, the processes have become very impersonal. And when people receive a rejection email from Mary, the recruiter, 9 times out of 10 is an automatic email that is sent by the system. Mary has not even seen the CV, maybe, it's just as we were saying, the AI or the system has done the criteria. And as Jenny said, the top 5 have been selected and you didn't have the right words or the right experience because there was people with more specific experience to the role. So if the business is not taking the rejection personal, what would you, right? And I always see the process of applying for a job as a numbers game. It's all about statistics and probability. You might have to knock 100 doors before one opens, So from my point of view is try not to see each no as personal feedback or a statement about your worth and how good you are. And just take it and move to the next, and just keep going. Celebrate the small steps, keep a routine, stay connected with others, and momentum builds slowly, and you'll be learning what it works, So once you apply for 100, you can start to have an idea of which ones, which cover letters, which applications, which versions of your CV are working better than others, and you start to polish your process as you go forward. But it is a volumes number, especially with the market as it is right now. And employers right now have a lot of the power. A few years ago, it wasn't the case, and now the power has shifted into the employers. And if they have 10 tick boxes to fill and you only tick 9, there is going to be someone that ticks the 10. That's the reality, That doesn't mean he's the right person for the job, though. But they tick the 10 boxes. So it's not personal, okay? Just keep going, keep applying. I'm not saying that is volume over quality. Of course, focus on the quality of the applications, as Janice was saying, take time, but keep knocking doors until one opens, because as he said, you only need one door to open. And once that happens, then things start to roll. But do not take it personal. Just see it like, okay, that's it. Put the application through, got the rejection, move on to the next one. and see what you can learn from that.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Yeah, thank you. So I think we've kind of come to the end of our questions. So sorry about questions that we haven't been able to answer. It's just we've kind of always run out of time on these things. We've got a survey that we'd like everyone in the audience to fill out, which my colleague Ali, I think, is going to share. So please do click through to that and give it a go. And while you guys are letting us know how you found the session, I'm going to ask Yanis and Bea just to give us some final thoughts to take away. What do you want people to take away from this session? Yanis, should we start with you? Or not? Sorry. You're on top on my screen, so you come first.
That's fine. I don't mind. I think people need to remember that they need to continue with courage. We talked about all these things today, but that having to go through this change in your lives, it's such a big sign of courage and determination and resilience and all of these things that employers value. And it might feel sometimes after, the 100 applications that you don't get anywhere, it might feel like that you're losing the battle, but continue, persevere, stay open to feedback and stay positive to it. And as I said, you just need one person to believe in you. And from my personal experience, it can happen, and it can happen in a very unexpected time, and it can change your life.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Bea, do you want to?
Yeah, from my point of view, it's the same. I think the main thing is there's going to be times when you're going to feel low, or you're going to think it's not going to happen. Just keep going. Okay, it will happen. But the other thing is being realistic as well. And that's the main thing for me. I think that was a lesson that I learned myself. From then. It was being realistic when I was trying to apply for HR roles, and things like that without having the experience here or even the English to be able to communicate, to do it. So it's about being realistic. Find how can you get on different ways also to that roles. Is it through work experience? Can you reach out? Thinking of the people from a healthcare point of view, healthcare assistants are in demand all the time and do not require any qualifications. Maybe that's your way to get in your door into the NHS systems, even if you are phlebotomist or whatever else, that's your qualifications in the past, So I'll say just be creative and think outside the box. A lot of people will focus just on looking at the job adverts that come out and just apply. They start to make connections with recruiters. They start to reach out to recruitment agencies. A lot of the jobs are not even advertised anymore. People is just going through their databases. So just open your doors into different ways of actually approaching the job market, not just waiting and just applying to CVs. But as I said, it is hard. There's moments where you want to give up, where you think, what on earth have I done? Just keep going, because as Jenny said, it can happen anytime, and if anyone wants to reach out afterwards, and compare, the rejection emails from Office Angels from 2010, which I'll never forget. More than happy to talk to anyone and to help, but as I said, just keep going, keep digging. It's like that drawing that is always online, where the guy's digging and the gold is just literally there, but they stopped it, a hit before. So just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to share what Beetle has shared in the chat, which is they've said not taking it personally is the hardest, but it really helps if you can do it. And they said, I finally started to understand this after my 100th application. As it took some time, definitely. And they said, especially remembering after the first few applications, checking their email, all the time. So yeah, I think that really, really good advice is just keep going, and it will happen. And yeah, it's just about being positive and staying on. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to Bex and everyone at Breaking Barriers for arranging this session. It was really, really great for us to be able to do this. But a special thank you to you, Yanis and Bea, for giving us such fantastic advice and tips today. I think we've all learned something. So really, really great session. And thank you as well to all of you for coming along, and really best of luck with the job search, and you will definitely get there in the end. So thank you, everyone.